This is a non-spoiler review of the new film Superman, which was just released in theaters, and it has a runtime of around 2 hours and 9 minutes, and it's written and directed by James Gunn, and it is kicking off the new DC universe. Now, I am a huge Superman fan. Superman is my favorite superhero. I've been reading comics, following Superman for more than half my life, so I was really looking forward to this film, but I was also very nervous for this film because I want it to be the best thing since sliced bread. Now, was it the best thing since sliced bread? Maybe not. I don't know. Debatable. You're about to know my full thoughts on it, so just give me a second. But when I am coming at this criticism for this film, I want you guys to know that I'm coming at it from a hardcore fan perspective. So yes, I could be nicer in certain things, and general audiences aren't going to be picking up on things that I necessarily picked up. So just take it as my opinion. So let's just dive into this non-spoiler review of the film Superman. Superman is played by David Cornsweet, and overall, I think he did a really good job playing Superman. This is a huge mantle to fill. I mean, you're coming after Henry Cavill, who was probably one of the best actors that could have ever played Superman. I always say he is the perfect Superman, but he just didn't get the perfect film, which is really disappointing and really hard. But David Cornsweet, for what this role was, I think he did a pretty good job. Now, is he the best Superman to ever play Superman? No. But is he still enjoyable to watch on screen? Yeah, he did a good job. So round of applause for David Cornsweet. Now, Rachel Brosnahan, who plays Lois Lane, I think she actually did a pretty good job as Lois Lane. I really had nothing against her. Nicholas Hoult, who plays Lex Luthor, he actually did a really good job. I was really nervous about this role because Lex Luthor can definitely be a hit or miss character to portray on screen, but I think with his little behaviors, he did a really good job of playing the intellectual who is trying to get rid of Superman by his brain and not by his bronze. And this film kicks off 3 years into Superman being Superman. He's doing hero things, and he has a little justice gang, so that is filled with Hawk Girl, Guy Gardner, and Mr. Terrific. Now, being a comic book fan, I was like, okay, I'm a little nervous for this film to have all these different characters in it because we know, from a movie perspective, we know nothing about these characters, and now this film is going to have to explain who these characters are, make the audience like them, and I thought, oh, it's going to definitely take away from the character Superman. This is a Superman film, so I want to watch Superman. I don't really care about any of these other characters for this specific film, but they actually did a pretty good job. They were in there definitely for the comedy, and this film was definitely a comedy. It is not a superhero film, I would say, first and foremost. Comedy definitely was at the forefront. There was a different little punchline literally every second, and it worked for this film. The theater I was in was packed, and people were loving the humor, laughing throughout the whole film. So I was like, okay, that's cool. There's a lot of humor, and it's definitely going to be reminiscent of Garden of the Galaxy just because James Gunn, same guy who did Garden of the Galaxy's movies, and he definitely did incorporate that Marvel humor throughout, which is fine, but I don't want it all the time. There was a couple moments throughout this film with the humor that I really wanted them to wait. Just wait. There's this moment where Superman is talking about what it means to be human. And I was like, this is okay. He's doing it. David Cornsweet, he's doing it. And then, bam, they hit you with the joke. And I was like, oh, you just ruined everything he was talking about with the joke. And that is just one thing I wish they would have. Just wait on the emotional moments where you're trying to hit home the points of your film. Just wait on the humor. Just wait. Give us a minute. Okay, don't just hit the humor button right away when things get uncomfortable or emotional. Let the audience feel that emotion. It's okay for us to feel emotion. We don't need to be laughing the whole time or be happy the whole time. It's okay to feel other emotions. So I wish they would have dialed back the humor a little bit, or at least just waited, but their punchlines, everything, it worked for this film. It really did, and they used Crypto for that. Now I was like, oh, Crypto, he's gonna be in there as a little cute character, blah, 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 to sell merchandise. And yes, he he's definitely in there for that. But if you are a dog person, Crypto's definitely going to hit home. You're going to be like, yep, that's my dog. That, right there, Crypto. That my dog does that. So it's definitely going to reminiscent of if you do have a dog. So sorry, cat people. But if you are a turtle fan, there is a turtle in this film. So that's pretty cute, right? Now, we do get to see the Daily Planet do some investigating journalism, which was one of my favorite parts of the film, when we got to see the Daily Planet, Jimmy Olsen and Lois Lane really doing their thing, writing articles, investigating, and Jimmy Olsen being a ladies' man was a perfect fit. Honestly, it made for some really funny moments, and it just worked really well, and Lois Lane doing the investigation, I did actually enjoy the parts of the film. Now, Mr. Terrific, he was one of my most anticipated parts of like this film, when I was like, oh my gosh, we're gonna get Mr. Terrific in this film. I was excited because I am a fan of Mr. Terrific, and I actually think one of the better parts of the film, the actor who played Mr. Terrific absolutely killed it, did a great job in this film. Now, there is a bigger ensemble cast with this film, and for the first in the DC universe that James Gunn is kicking off, it does make sense. He's trying to build up these characters before they go on and do other things across this whole universe. So, in some parts, it did work, but halfway through the film, I was like, this feels not necessarily like a Superman film at parts. It feels like Superman is just in this film, and it's not his film. So, some of my fears about going into this film did come true, but overall, they did some patchwork, and it worked. It was okay. Now, when it comes to the action, this film definitely is CGI heavy, so you are going to see some things you're going to be like, that looks a little weird, and you're not the only one thinking that. Yes, it does. It's definitely CGI heavy, so, but all superhero films are nowadays, so we just have to live with it, nod our heads, yes, so believable, wink, wink, cough, cough. But we see Superman get beat up a lot in this film, and Superman can never do anything on his own. He's always having someone there to pull him out of a sticky situation, which is fine most of the time, but I just want one fight scene of Superman just kicking absolute butt. That's what I wanted, and sadly it didn't deliver. Now, they did have some heroic moments of Superman saving someone, and then they do a zoom in on the symbol, the hope symbol in his chest, and you were like, okay, that's cool. But by the third time of them doing that, every time he saved someone, I was like, we need to change up some of these angles, we need to do something different. But I don't know, I'm not James Gunn. So the action, there were some good action scenes, however, there were some iffy ones, and I wish we just could have seen more of Superman being Superman. Now, with the film Superman, I think it's a good start for the new DC universe. I'm not as scared as I was before this film really did take off. I'm really curious about how Supergirl's going to be, just because it's going to be Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, which was written by Tom King, which could be interesting depending on how much they pull from that comic book. So I am a little curious on which direction it is going to be, and if it's going to be humor throughout the whole universe. Now, don't get me wrong, I do love humor and comedy, but I don't want it in all my films, and if I do want it in all my films, I don't want it to be overloaded. I don't want them to be like, humor, humor, humor. I just want it to be, you know, here or there where it makes sense, get a little laugh, but it doesn't have to be within every single minute of a film. So I am curious to see if the whole universe is going to be like that, or if they are going to mix it up a little bit, but it definitely does feel reminiscent of Marvel, which I don't know, I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. Now, is this a Superman film that is going to be groundbreaking? Oh my gosh, Superman, no, but it was a really enjoyable film if you are not into comic books. If you are just a fan who wants to go and see a good movie and have a couple laughs, then you are probably going to enjoy this film. It's going to be right up your alley. You're going to get the laughs. You're going to see some action, and it's an easy story. It's fast-paced. It's fun. Things like that. It really is a fun movie, but if you are a comic book fan, there are going to be things that you're like, where you can definitely nitpick and get into it. So there are going to be things that bother you if you are a comic book fan, a Superman fan. But overall, I think it was an okay start, better than I was expecting. Honestly, I was preparing for the worst, and I think coming off of Zack Snyder's, where we had a very dark, very grounded universe, this was definitely the polar opposite of it. So it really depends on your personal taste. If you prefer a more grounded, then you may not necessarily enjoy this film, but I do think it was a little bit different and did bring some light into Superman that we haven't seen in quite a while. Now, if you are expecting a lot of Clark Kent, you really shouldn't, because there's not a lot of Clark Kent, but there's really not a lot of Clark Kent in any of the Superman films, so it really was nothing. I was like, yeah, I kind of expected that. They just mention Clark Kent, I feel like, in the movies, and call it a day. They're like, okay, you got to see him do a little bit of journalism, and that's good enough. So I wouldn't go into this movie with high expectations of, oh my gosh, it's going to be a lot of Clark Kent, because it's not. But overall, I would say if you have any interest in this film, you might as well go see it, because you'll probably get some sort of enjoyment out of it. You're not going to be ripping your eyeballs out. It's not that bad of a film. So just go give it a shot. Even if you are thinking of maybe not seeing Superman, you might as well. No harm will come from it. Now, Ultraman is in it, and without getting into too many spoilers, it's what they did with Ultraman was definitely interesting. They could have gone many different ways. If you do read comic books, you could know they had a lot of options of how to use Ultraman in this film. And I don't know if they chose the best one. In my opinion, I would have gone differently, and maybe in a different video I'll talk about what I would do to change Superman, especially with Ultraman, do differently just as a comic book fan. But again, non-comic book fans, the normies, the people who are just going to go see Superman are not going to know any of that, so it's just going to overlook them. But that was definitely an interesting move if you are a comic book fan. James Gunn did something interesting with Ultraman. It's what you would expect from the trailers, but it didn't reach the full potential or what I was really hoping they would, like deep down inside, but it was okay, it worked. But overall, that was just my thoughts on the Superman film. Overall, I would just say go watch it, give it a shot if you are, and just know if you are a comic book fan, there are going to be things that definitely do bother you about it, but if you're just a normie and want a fun movie, then this is definitely the movie for that. But let me know your thoughts down in the comment section down below if you're going to go see Superman, or if you saw it and what your thoughts are. Do you agree or disagree with me? But have a great day. Bye!